Hello, and welcome to the online celebration for Nancy Britt's beautiful memoir, 7 Days in the Mists. My name is Thea Rodemaker, and my company, Flint Hills Publishing, is honored to include this book in our house that has over 40 authors and over 80 books in our catalog. Just a little bit of housekeeping tonight. This is a webinar, so you won't be seen on camera, but we are going to have a question and answer period afterward, and you can either ask your question in the chat. So go ahead and turn that on, or if you raise your hand using the little icon that looks like a raised hand, then we'll turn on your mic and call on you. A special thank you for my right-hand person, Flint Hills Publishing author Lynn Murphy, who for the last 5 years has consistently helped me with the technology for Zoom. Lynn, I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. Well, so let's introduce the woman of the hour, the reason we're all here, Ms. Nancy Britt. When I first met Nancy, I was intrigued by her background, and I could relate to her law school experience. It's something we both have in common. She was a trial attorney and then a legal editor for many years. She left the law to follow her heart, and she became a professional equestrian show jumper. Today, she owns a successful training and coaching equestrian business in Tucson, Arizona. Nancy has the strength of a warrior, as her advocacy during the early days of the AIDS crisis and her dedication to fight inequality based on sexual orientation prove. And her internal strength and her storytelling voice were ignited by a life-changing event to Ireland in 2016. And it's because of that experience that we're here tonight. So, Nancy, thank you for joining us. And I'm just so honored to have been able to publish this beautiful book.
Well, thank you for doing that. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I'm just really pleased to be here tonight.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you about, Nancy, is to just, for those people who haven't yet read 7 Days in the Mists, can you It's a complex book, a lot goes on, but can you describe it to us? What is it about?
Yeah, I guess the little cliff notes for that book would be it's a book about love and loss and circumstances and events that led me to a crossroads in life where I couldn't find my way forward. So I went to Ireland, and through my experiences there with the people and the mysticism of the island, it put me back together again.
That's a great description and what concise. Well done, counselor.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Nancy, this is such an intimate revealing of some very intense parts of your life. Your book's been available for several weeks now. Is the reaction to it what you expected? Has it been difficult or easier than you expected to share such raw parts of your life with the public?
It's a little bit of I have to answer that. It's been yes, what I expected, and no, I did not expect some of the reactions I got, especially to some of the things in the book I that came out to people. I thought there would just be one or two themes, and I'm finding out through either talking with friends or reviews is that this book speaks to people on multiple levels, whether it be mental health or trauma or loss. Each person pulling their own stories out of this narrative, and
Mm.
so it's been fun. Yes, I thought it would evoke some emotions more than I thought in some cases, and different than I thought. Another difference that I was not prepared for was how it was perceived between my friends who are here in the United States and people I know in Europe and UK and in particular. And it's a much different way about people approach personal matters that I was unaware of. In America, we love to talk about our stuff. Uh, Other people around the world, not so much. I can't understand why you would do that.
Hmm. Well, do you think it's sparking some good conversations then with your European friends, or do they not want to discuss it with you?
No, it's been a really great conversations around different ways that we handle events in our lives or stressors,
Hmm.
and explains a lot about cultures and sometimes our humor about how they deal with stress, and I think that is a great way that culturally we do address stressful events in our society.
Well, anything we can do to reduce our stress
Yes.
in the world, good thing. Thank you for, for your work on that. I make no secret when I talk to my authors or when I'm talking about Flint Hills Publishing of letting people know that memoir is absolutely my favorite genre. And I think it's reflected in the Flint Hills Publishing catalog. I have a lot of memoirs. I believe memoir reflects what is I think is the fundamental purpose of life to gain experience, to gather knowledge, and hopefully to become more wise. What do you want the reader to gain from reading your book?
I would like the readers to know that they're not alone in having life knock them around. I think we all have that shared experience. And that is the part of life, is to experience, to go through trials and tribulations and grow spiritually uh, through those. And that's part of what I would like people to take away from this book.
Hmm. Well, Nancy, will you be so kind as to share a reading with us from the book? Um,
Sure.
I, I, I don't know what you're going to read, so if you could tell us, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Great. Well, I have to put on my readers because I'm of that age. But the passage that I picked today is about an end of my first day out and about in the countryside of Ireland. And true to form of this book, nothing went according to plan. I spent most of the day being lost and frustrated. And so this is an excerpt at the end of that day I've just gone to a place called St. Kevin's Monastery in Glendalough. And so I'm going to pick up the story from there. I walked through the remains of a double stone archway. The sky was starting to change, giving it a magical glow. As I walked through the archway, I felt an energy shift as I crossed through the portal. I emerged out the other side, surrounded by mountains, woodlands, and a meadow. A stream ran down from the mountains through the meadow. It was a place left behind by time. Here there were no such things as cars, airplanes, the internet, or anything of the modern world. It was just still. The only sounds were the birds singing of their day and the wind coming down through the trees. There were still a few people milling about, but everyone respected the solitude and serenity of this place. I knew that this was a very popular tourist destination and had expected it to have a cold, commercialized feel about it, but I was wrong. Instead, I felt a calmness I hadn't experienced in a long time. I couldn't remember when I last felt this. I began to realize that getting lost hadn't been solely an exercise in frustration. There was a deeper purpose. Fate had brought me here at this late hour so that I could feel the magic. From this ancient place, founded in the 6th century, there remained a round tower and multiple buildings, including an intact church from the 12th century, known as St. Kevin's Kitchen. As I walked around, I noticed gravestones everywhere. Some were standing, some were lying down. Some you could read, others were lost to the corrosions of time. A robin perched on one curiously watched at me as I wandered through the graveyard. Amazingly, I saw that people had been buried there as late as the 1970s. Ireland, I mused. So much of its past was visible, tangible, just as obvious and prevalent as the trappings of the asphalt roads, cell towers, and steel structures of modern society. Eventually, the path led me away from the buildings to a bridge over the stream. I crossed over and entered a forest. It was old, still, and dark. The forest floor was bare, with only a few ferns and trunks covered in emerald moss. This was an ancient place, left alone from the ravages of industry for centuries. To me, it felt as if I had yet again stepped into another world. For the third time that day, I left the crowds behind and wandered off in solitude among the trees. This time, I did so purposefully. Would the voice find me here? Was it just a fluke, a figment of my imagination? And honestly, I didn't know if I would welcome it or be scared out of my mind. Slowly, I walked the path among the trees. Unlike the episode at Powers Court, here I felt hidden and safe, as if I had entered a sanctuary. I wish I had planned on spending a full day here, but I hadn't expected to be so enchanted. In fact, my original thought was to quickly see Powers Court, swing up here to Glendalough to visit the ruins, and then head on down towards the coast to stay for the night. I chuckled to myself, as it was clearly apparent that the day had not gone at all as planned. Twilight fell when I emerged from the forest and came to a second bridge crossed back over the water. Midway, I stopped and leaned on the wood railing. I looked up the stream, across the meadow to the round tower in the distance, the mountains shadowed in the backdrop. It was surreal. The air was pleasant and comforting. I closed my eyes, and all I could hear was the running of the water over the stones. I stood transfixed, absorbing all the magic that was here. I was nowhere and everywhere. I was past and I was present. There was a shift of air, and I sensed that I was no longer alone. I opened my eyes and looked at a blackbird perched on the railing. He cocked his head and looked imperiously at me. "Well, hello there, little fellow," I said softly. He let out a quick and short lilt of a song in acknowledgement of my greeting. After the day's events, I stopped questioning the improbable. Was it any more fanciful to believe a bird just answered me, or that some supernatural force was talking to me in my head? The rational explanation was the same for both. I was nuts. But I didn't feel crazy. Quite the opposite. I felt more sane than I had in a long time, standing here conversing with my feathered friend. You're probably wondering why I'm here, I said. Well, partly it's to pay homage to your patron saint. Oh, yes, he's famous. Well, at least in Ireland and to Catholics. We both looked up towards the tower. But that's not the only reason. You see, I'm lost. I've lost myself. Maybe being here, I'll find my way again. A long time ago, my ancestors lived here. I guess I'm hoping by coming back, I too will find my roots, my foundation. Because honestly, my friend, I need to believe there is more. There is more to this existence than what I've been living. I looked over and saw that he had not flown off. So, my little friend, how about you? Why are you sitting here listening to some mad American woman? Maybe you can help me out. Tell me about your ancient ways. Lead me to hidden sanctuaries where I can lie down and be reborn. Or perhaps you would be so kind as to send a guide for me. He looked one last time at me before he raised his head up to the heavens and sang a song. His notes, shrill, pure, and true, floated in the air, dipped over the water, and rang out across the meadow before rising over the trees and dissolving into the night sky.
Nancy, thank you. I've read your book more than a few times, but your prose is so beautiful, and there's just an energy about your writing that I find very uplifting. Not, there's some tough things as well, but it really creates a lot of emotion, and ultimately just made me feel, just lifts my vibe. So thank you. I think that's what good memoir should do, and I certainly think that you accomplished that.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
well, you've been kind of a little hard to get a hold of the last few weeks or a couple of months, because you have been doing a lot of traveling to Europe. Definitely the travel bug did not stop with you with that trip in 2016. I'm wondering, now that some of us are thinking about venturing out more, what advice would you give to a novice adventurer about creating a life-changing, a life-improving travel experience?
Do it. Absolutely do it. And don't be afraid. Um, make as minimal plans as you can. Let yourself get lost. Because when you do all those things, then the magic happens and you will get what you're looking for. And the best thing you can do is go out by yourself.
Hmm. Well, I love what you read earlier in your excerpt, that the day had not gone as planned. I can certainly relate to that. It's sometimes those strange days that have the most magic in them. And I will take to heart what you said about doing an adventure on your own. But, it's fun to do it with other people as well, too. So
Yes.
thank you. Okay, great. Well, now I'm going to put on my publisher hat for just a minute. And that means I'm going to share, first of all, the suggestion that you buy this book if you haven't already. You can find it on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Bookshop.org is a website that supports indie bookstores. You can indicate which bookstore you would like to purchase it from. Uh, it's easy to find. And even if you have a local bookstore, you can go in and you can say, hey, do you have 7 Days in the Mists? And they can order it for you, and maybe it'll come to their attention. Sneaky little hint there. We'd love for you to leave a review. You can leave one on Amazon. If you don't use Amazon, you can leave a review on Google, or you can email a review to me or to Nancy. I'm easy to find. Flint Hills Publishing. I'm all over the internet. Tell your friends. This is a conversation I always have with people. What are you reading? Word of mouth marketing is absolutely fantastic to get a book the love and support it needs and deserves. If you have a book club or another organization, Nancy loves to go out and speak. She can come by Zoom. She likes to travel. She might very well come to you in person. And stay in touch with Nancy, because rumor has it there are other stories that are rumbling around in her head. So you can find her at her beautiful website, nancymbritt.com. You can see some very cool pictures of her riding her horses. I encourage you to check that out. So, Nancy, thanks for spending time with us tonight. And now we're going to turn it over to the people who are here tonight with you and let them ask questions. So, thank you, Lynn. Lynn put the link for Nancy's book in the chat. Okay, so the first question in chat, and then also you can use the raise hand feature. If you look at the toggle bar at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the little raise hand and click on that, and then Lynn will open up your mic and you can ask your question. The first question is, why did you decide to go to Ireland?
Well, I'm pretty much Irish, both sides of my family, and was raised with an Irish identity. So to me, to go back to find myself, I really felt the need to go to Ireland and find out who my ancestral people are. And I really wanted to connect back to the roots of my culture. So, and I just had an overwhelming urge to go to Ireland.
That's terrific. Okay. I do too. It's on my short list for sure. Okay. Another question. Do you recommend travel just for fun, or should we be looking for something?
Oh, I think you should travel for lots of reasons. It's travel for fun, you know, travel for adventure. And I think traveling for spiritual growth is just as important. And it doesn't mean all can't happen at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Leslie wants to know, do you think this need to connect with our roots is a particularly American or modern need?
I think it's a uniquely American thing because we are a land of immigrants, and that's how we identify ourselves. And especially, I'm going to speak a little bit for the Irish diaspora that happened with the famine. And we have been, in my family, we tell stories constantly reflecting on our Irish roots. So, but I have also with my friends in England, they're just as, they're not maybe as much needing it for identity, but they definitely like to trace themselves back, also their heritage. But I think the need culturally for that identity is an American thing.
Okay. And it's been interesting too, just in the States to see this explosion of people wanting to do genealogy research. You know, my partner, Steve, he is fascinated by ancestry.com and connecting the dots. Whereas for me, I just don't have an interest in that. So I don't know why that is. So I think it's just, you know, some people just have a much greater desire to get that kind of information. We have another question. Is there a difference between how Americans responded to your book and how Europeans respond to the book?
Yes, there was definitely a big difference between that. As I kind of alluded to in the beginning, in America, we don't think twice about talking about our trials and tribulations and our ups and our downs. In fact, I think Americans, we see it a little bit as badge of courage, or that we faced them down and we are able to talk about it. And it's part of a personal growth culture here in America. In Europe and in the UK in particular with my friends and in Ireland, there was a less of, they don't mind reading about it, but they wouldn't write a book like this. They wouldn't talk about themselves this openly. Just as a
Hmm.
culture thing, they wouldn't do that.
Mhm. Well, getting back to this question about our roots, we have a new question. Is this connection to our roots something that binds us together or divides us? How does a culture like ours use this to unify?
That's a good question. I think I think properly explored, it should unite us, especially today. I mean, we are all from somewhere historically, unless you're a Native American on this soil. But we should go back to embracing that concept that we are the product of generations who came here looking to create a new life and new opportunities. And that's a commonality. And it doesn't matter if you're from Poland, from Italy, from Mexico, from Guatemala, or from Ireland, or anywhere in the world. We actually have that as a unifying belief structure.
Hmm. I agree with you. That's a very timely topic that we need to be thinking about. The final question that we have is, oh, we have a hand up. Okay, just a minute, Steve. Did you find family connections in Ireland? And the questionnaire person who's asking the question admits, I haven't finished reading your book.
Well, the book didn't deal with that. And I shamefully will have to say, when I went there, I didn't even think about looking for family connections. But since then, I have made some family connections back there and am currently exploring them.
Okay, terrific. Okay, Steve, your mic is hot, as they say. Want to ask your question?
Hi, Nancy. Steve Fredrickson here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey, I
Yes.
just want to thank you for doing this tonight. I always find it great to hear the authors and find out the process that goes on behind the scenes when a book is made. You mentioned that or encourage people to travel alone, and especially for this kind of spiritual journey that like you were on. And the first thing I thought of is, God, that sounds hard and a little scary. And then to travel to Europe, in an unfamiliar culture, at least the language was pretty close to what we speak, right?
Yeah.
So when you combine, traveling alone to a new place, it occurs to me that you're kind of in a forced state of solitude and higher sense of attention to what's going on around you. Do you think that? I mean, in other words, could it have been a similar experience if you had traveled somewhere you were familiar with? Or I wonder if those added pressures of being alone in a foreign culture is kind of made that spiritual journey more effective for you.
Well, I know for me, it did, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't go out into the southwestern United States, into some of the desolate areas here. Um, Definitely isolating and in a different way, and get that same spiritual um, connection and growth. I definitely, though, would say dealing culturally with differences and being an outsider helped me in the process of connecting in to a higher force.
Yeah, that makes a
Ooh,
lot of sense.
yeah, that does. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Steve. We have a question from Rod. He said, writing memoir is hot, as Thea stated, but have you ever considered turning a true event or a memoirish tale into a fictional tale?
Yes, in fact, my next work is going to be fiction. Um, so I'm definitely excited to explore that right now, a fictional tale. And it'll stretch me as a writer, which I'm looking forward to. But I'm really looking forward to character development. And a memoir, you're limited to how far you can go. With
Mhm.
fiction, you can take some of these themes and really expand on them.
Well, I look forward to reading that file. Another question. We've learned so much from travel to different areas, not just where our ancestors are from. Have you experienced that as well?
Not yet, but I definitely is on my list of things that I want to explore. I have a huge urge to go to Japan, and I want to make it a pilgrimage. And I definitely want to go to the shrines and again do another spiritual journey that way. So
Are you doing that solo, or would you bring along a frazzled publisher?
the right one, yes, absolutely would bring her along.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
All right. Well, Nancy, thank you so much. I really
There are two
enjoyed.
more questions.
Two more questions, Lynn.
In-
Say them. I don't see them.
And they're in Q&A. They're not in the chat. So
Oh, in Q&A. Oh, I see. Thank you, Lynn.
yeah, we don't want to
Okay.
miss those.
Yes, Nancy or Joyce Simmons asked, Nancy, did you originally plan on publishing your memoir, or were you logging the experience for personal reasons? Great question, because you have so much detail in the memoir, and I was just, how did you recall all of this? So what was your, that's a great question. And then what was your process? I'd like to know.
The process of taking the trip, I did want to journal heavily. So I journaled every night, every day while I was there. And that's, kind of how I was able to connect in with so much detail. And I'm also a prolific photographer. And so the combination of those two helped me then recreate in that. I did not go to Ireland with the idea of ever writing this book. But I did go wanting to journal and do a lot of, actually mental health work for myself. So then it came back, and fate would have it, I ran into a friend who's a writing coach, and she kind of the one who kicked me in the pants and says, you need to write a book. And that's how that evolved.
Well, I think that's why it's such an authentic, powerful story. I mean, it's not constructed. You didn't create a trip for yourself and say, I'm going to write a book about it. I think your experience from reading the book, it was so powerful, and it surprised you. And that is probably then what inspired you to write a book, because writing a book is hard. You need to be inspired, and you certainly were. So, and we're all the better for it, because I just really encourage everyone to read this book. It's quite lovely and uplifting, and it's a journey. Nancy, I'm so glad that you've picked Flint Hills Publishing to be on this journey with you. Like I said, it's an honor to work with you. It's been quite delightful. I encourage everyone to buy the book, talk about it, leave a review, and check out our website, because some new stuff will be coming, and we'll want to see what that is. So thank you so much, everybody. You'll receive an email from Zoom tomorrow around this time that will have a link to the recording if you want to download it. But I'm going to share it on the YouTube channel, and we'll just help get the word out there. Supporting an indie author is just a really sweet thing to do. So thank you, everybody, and have a good and safe night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.